How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern, Saturdays with the Jim Valley, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern. And it is Tuesday here on the show. Normally you know what that means, but you do not know what it means today, because we have a programming change of sorts. Normally on Tuesdays, we do Observer Live, and then 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern, Lance Storm joins us for Figure Four Daily. But we're making a change here today. Mike Sempervive is under the weather. Hopefully he does not have what poor Craig had. Holy smokes. Craig had the flu, and it was brutal. But Craig has returned to life. Hopefully the same will happen with Mike. But because he is out today, he will be replaced on this program by Lance Storm. So Lance and I are going to talk all of the news and a bunch of other topics as well, including Lance's thoughts on why the brand split is, in fact, an antiquated concept. So we got a lot to talk about with Lance today. And, of course, we'll have all of the news as well, and there is plenty of it. Last night was Raw. We've got the world-famous Raw report. And interestingly enough, a lot of things were changed on Raw, but it was not because of Vince McMahon. Although I think he did change one thing. But what happened was about 50% of the roster was on one flight that was coming from Florida to Seattle, and the flight was delayed. And so they had to shuffle the show, rebook the show, change the show up. And at the end of the day, I mean, it was still a pretty good show. Although we didn't see some of the things that we were promised, but such is life. The appearance at the end of the show by Sami Zayn and Riddle almost did not happen, as they literally arrived at the building halfway through the third hour. So we'll do the Raw report here today. We got NXT lineup for tonight. We've got Rampage and SmackDown ratings, plenty more. And we're going to kick it off after the break. Stick around, Observer Live.
Two, I guess, right? November 2020 was our first
a little over 2 years.
A little over 2 years, but during quarantine, everyone's sitting at home. We're kind of trying to figure out what's next. When things reopen, when shows start back up again, what are we going to do? And we decided, why not do things on our own terms? That's the one thing people are going to have to learn about the Hex, is we do things when we want and how we want to do them. And so we one day just started spitballing stuff back and forth. We were able to use social media, during 2020 to start getting these opportunities and people being like, oh, what's going on? It's crazy because we did it all on our own. I think that we did this without a contract in any company. We did this, reaching out to, and that's another thing that's really cool too, is that we can pull from each other's contacts. AK is going to reach out to this company in England. All right, cool. I'm going to reach out to this one in Spain. Like, we're just going to keep working together. And that's like that's the craziest thing, is that we did this completely on our own, just betting on ourselves and being like, we're going to go over to the UK. We're going to do all these fucking amazing matches there. We're going to come back and kill it here in the US. And we're just going to keep going. And to me, that is like, what is the craziest to me? Like, I don't care how high I've gotten by myself, whatever. Like, to me, doing it as a team, and there are so many freaking amazing tag teams in the world, period. But to be in the top 10 and being the only women in the top 10
in the US,
not gonna lie, in the US, not gonna lie, like, felt really fucking good.
Well, a lot of people do ask us why we're called the Hex. And while James Mitchell may be using us to put a hex on the Death Dolls, we do also like to clarify, we're not witches. There are a lot of witches in wrestling right now, and we're not trying to be witches. We're called the Hex because we will ruin your whole life. I want to touch on something you actually mentioned earlier, Denise, about filling a void, because that is something we talked about in 2020. I feel like throughout our careers, we have always looked for what is missing in wrestling right now, because you can't just be like everyone else. We've always tried to, of course, play to our strengths and find things that are missing in wrestling. And I feel like in 2020, we really said to each other at one point, there are not really many women tag teams on the indies that are established. I think at the time it was like Sea Stars, and that might have been about it, because there wasn't a lot of indie tag teams in the US of females. And that was a huge part of why we're like, we should do this. We are actually friends. We actually want to tag together. All the tag teams we're seeing, some on TV too, but also especially on the indies, we're throwing together people. I think that's something that also draws people to us, is that they can feel that we want to be here and that we're actually having fun together. That's something people say to us when they see us in the ring is, you look like you're actually having fun out there. And we're like, that's because we are.
Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive convalescing here today. Hope he feels better soon. In the meantime, Lance P. Storm
the floating
is joining
head.
us here today. Yeah, you're a floating head. What's going on here, brother?
I don't know. Jared's the background.
What's going on, Jared? What's happening? He just woke up, apparently. Anyway, we'll get your head figured out here soon enough. But anyway, I want to mention that we're going to do the Raw report later on, but the Raw show last night was weird. Travel issues prevented some of the Raw roster from appearing on Monday's show, and we're talking like half the roster had a travel issue. Corey Graves mentioned that some of the roster had been prevented from appearing on Raw. The show was rewritten, and as a result, we had a lot of things that were announced that did not take place. Now, interestingly enough, Becky Lynch and Lita against Liv Morgan and Raquel, that was changed, but that was for angle reasons because Lita was at the show. The Matt Riddle versus Miz match was scrapped because Miz was not there, although apparently Dave said that it had been scrapped prior to the travel issues. But I mean, even if it had not, the match wouldn't have taken place because Riddle didn't show up until halfway through the third hour of the show, which was the same thing that happened with Sammy. And so literally they were doing the show with the presumption that they were going to be there to run in for the main event angle, but like there was no guarantee that that was actually going to happen. And Damian Priest was supposed to cut a promo. He was not there. So a lot of people did not end up making it to Seattle for the show last night. And the irony is, as I mentioned to Dave yesterday, you know, when that whole thing went down in AEW, where Brawl Out happened and CM Punk got suspended and they had to strip him of the title, and the Young Bucks got suspended and Kenny Omega, and they had to strip them of the trios titles. I mean, you could see that, you know, Tony Khan books in a certain way and he sticks to it for the most part. I mean, with, I'm sure an exception here or there, but when a monkey wrench gets thrown in, then it's all of a sudden a scramble to try to fix everything that's gone wrong. In WWE, for better or worse, and back in the day it was often for the worst, they would get everything ready to go, and Vince would show up, and he would just scrap a whole bunch of stuff and change this segment, cancel that segment, switch this up. I mean, there were times where they would get, the show was being rewritten as the show was already on the air. And long story short, they've got a lot of experience with dealing with things going awry at the last second. And so if you watch the show, I mean, you probably didn't even know that anything happened other than Corey Graves making mention of it. So they pulled it off. I thought the show was pretty good. I know you didn't see it, Lance, but we shall do the Raw report a little bit later on today. I know you wanted to talk about something here. A couple of things, actually. One of which is this idea that they announced on SmackDown. Triple H talked about doing another draft. And I think we can all agree, I don't think there's anybody listening to this right now that would agree that it's better to have a draft and a brand split. But what are your thoughts on this brand split?
I think it's one of the most outdated things they do. Like, every year they do it, it's, they try to separate the brands for a week or two to make you care, and then as soon as it's over, everything's back to jumping back and forth. Like, we've had, the brand to brand invitational, you're allowed 3 times a year to go to a different show. And it's like, business has been on a record-setting incline, like the first time in 20 years. And it's like, they've got 1 tag team champion. They've got 1 world champion. Guys work all the shows, and the show is better. It does better ratings. Business is better. Everything is better in the last, 8 months, whatever the heck, a year. And it's been predominantly without a brand split. Like, with the exception of 2 women's championships, there is nothing that even suggests there is a brand split. They have a SmackDown women's champion and a Raw women's champion. And it's like, other than that, there's no element of the show that really has anything to do with a brand split. I believe the last year or 2, it hasn't even pulled ratings. Like, it's just outdated. Like, unify the women's world championship and ditch the tag champs having to carry 4 belts and Roman having to carry 2. And it's like, just move on, ditch the whole concept. I don't think it works. And like you mentioned on whatever show of yours, I think it was Dave last night, the notion that, the networks want their own champion and stuff. It's like, pretty sure the networks want ratings, and they've been up lately. It's like, don't go back to what was producing worse ratings for you. Stick with what's working.
Well, for 100 years, we had a wrestling business where, these companies didn't have brand splits. There were different companies, but, it was the company. And if you had Nitro and Thunder, it was like the Nitro people would work on Thunder and the Thunder people, like there was no this. So then, they eventually did the WWE draft and brand split and everything like that. And, after several years of it, you started to ask the question, like, why do we need a brand split? And the answer became, well, we have to. And I was like, well, why do you have to? And then, they would come up with all of these different theories as to why you couldn't go back. And, when you have a theory about why you can't do something, but you don't test the theory, all you have is a theory. And you can argue, and there's not going to be an answer to it. But now, as you mentioned, for the last 8-9 months, we haven't stuck to the brand split. Everybody has gone wherever they needed to go. And now we have evidence that you don't need a brand split. And as you also noted, we have evidence that it's better without a brand split. And, forget the whole ratings thing. I mean, if the networks were really upset that, we thought we were going to get Roman Reigns, but we see this guy on Raw. Like, if that were actually an issue, this would not have gone on for 8 months. They would have gone right back to the split rosters. They didn't do it. That tells me it's not a huge concern among the networks. The bigger issue is, how's the show doing? Is it up year over year? Well, it is up year over year.
For like the first time in 20 years.
I don't see any reason to go back to a brand split or to do a draft other than in the past the draft has done good numbers, but it hasn't done good numbers for about the last 2 drafts because everybody's figured out this whole draft thing is BS. And the brand split is just something they do, and they can break the rules whenever they want. So I don't know what the point is. I don't know why we're doing it, but we're doing it. So
such is life. Label a show something, I guess.
Yeah,
I had pitched to WWE. I think it was, I don't know if I'd started yet, but I was going back as a producer. And I had pitched, like, every year after Mania, doing a draft show, but drafting NXT talent up to the main roster. And if they wanted, back when they had actually a brand split they stuck to, doing a trade deadline like they do in real sports. I don't know the details because I follow sports just slightly better than you do. But they could do a trade deadline leading into WrestleMania where you could swap some people from brand to brand if you were sticking to one. Again, I don't think you should do that at all. But you could do a special draft show where you call up NXT talent. I think people would get into that.
Well, I think that to a degree, we're going to have that because, Hunter made it abundantly clear that everybody is eligible. So I do think maybe like a Braun Breaker. But I
do think advertising as, pick a number, 4-6 NXT talent will be drafted on this show. People would tune in because they'd want to know who's getting called up. But if you're just doing the draft show that we've seen doesn't mean anything, but you hope a couple NXT people will. It's like, tell them for sure 4 NXT people will be drafted to the main roster on this date, and it's like people would tune in.
All right, when we come back from the break, we were talking about the Raw issues with transportation, and Lance actually has stories of how something like this brings a crew together. That, the ratings, and more, back in a moment. Observer Live.
I'm going to ask you guys each a question about the other person, and then you just let me know if the other person is wrong or not. And we're going to start off with Marty here. So here we go. Question number 1. What is Allison's favorite food?
What Allison could eat all the time, and necessarily her favorite food, but what she could eat all the time is sushi.
Is she right?
Correct.
Wee, ding, ding, ding. All right. What is Allison's favorite genre of music?
Ooh, that one's really hard because Allison listens to a lot of different things that you wouldn't expect her to listen to. But if I had to pick one, like if what's probably playing in her house now, I want to say like your mom's country music.
Oh, okay. Is she right?
I would say yes. I go, my playlists are like reggaeton and 90s country.
And that was gonna be my other one.
90s.
Spice Girls.
That's not
It's
what
like
I was
there's
expecting, by the way. I was not expecting that whatsoever. All right, question number 3. What is Allison's favorite item of clothing?
Her favorite. Oh, is it her favorite or what I know she likes to wear? And what if she wasn't
It can be
on
like a
camera right now?
specific item, yeah.
If she wasn't on camera right now, she would have her red robe on.
I'm a robe guy. Yeah, I'm a robe guy at home for sure.
Question number 4. Is Allison an early bird or a night owl?
I will literally get text messages from Allison at 2 or 3 in the morning. Allison is a night owl.
Okay, and last question. This one's more on like whatever you think, Marty. What is one word to describe Allison?
One word. I think it's one that we both have used to describe each other. Loyal.
Allison, your turn. Question number 1. What is Marty's favorite social media app?
Well, you know what it isn't.
I know it's not Twitter for sure. I guess by default it would be Instagram.
That's the only one I really use. Yeah.
Okay. Question number 2. What is Marty's favorite movie?
Ooh.
Marty's favorite movie. Oh,
Does Marty watch movies?
I know. I'm like, Marty doesn't really watch movies.
My favorite horror movie.
Your favorite horror movie is The Orphan.
Okay, there we go. Good one. Question number 3. What is Marty's favorite color?
Purple. Easy.
All righty.
I'm trying to listen into the camera. I'm literally wearing purple eyeshadow. Yes.
Oh, yeah, I see it. Question number 4. Does Marty prefer going out or staying in?
That's hard to say because I feel like both of us it can change on a whim. Marty, I will say Marty is definitely more extroverted than I am. So I'm just going to say going out, but I also know she loves staying in. So I don't know. There's not really a good answer to that one.
Yeah, that's a hard one. Yeah, literally everything AK just said.
All right. And last question, same question is, what's the one word you would use to describe Marty?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many going through my head right now. Resilience.
Oh, that's a strong word.
You know
I
what's
love that.
freaking insane? I swear to you, that is what I was going to say for yours.
I believe you.
I wish we could have been like writing this down, like holding it up because I
said it at the same time.
Yeah.
Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Lance T. Storm, joining us here today. And before we go to his...
changing.
Yes, don't kill the gimmick here, Lance. Before we go to Lance's thoughts on shows like this, bringing the crew together, would like to mention that the ratings following WrestleMania, great for pro wrestling this week. We had the SmackDown show, 2.5 million viewers and an 0.69 in 18 to 49, which is monstrous. Rampage, 503,000 and a 0.17, which is very good for Rampage. And Battle of the Belts, which aired afterwards, did a 415,000 and 0.14, which is good for Battle of the Belts as well. And, you know, the SmackDown number Best total audience for SmackDown since January of 27. And in 18 to 49, that 0.69, you have to go back to 2020 on Christmas Day when they followed an NFL game that had like 14 million people watching as a lead-in or something crazy like that. So if you take that out of the equation, which you should because it's an unfair comparison, I mean, this is the best 18 to 49 number in years and years and years. SmackDown led all of TV with a .51 in 18 to 34, which tripled the closest competition on English language network television. So some very, very good numbers for
Thank
both
God
shows.
they didn't beat Cody and ruin wrestling.
Friday night. Yeah, they didn't ruin wrestling with that one, but it is a show after Mania, so we're going to get the Raw numbers here in a while and the SmackDown numbers next week, and I think that that's going to give us a better indication of who's sticking around, what the number is going to end up being, et cetera, but excellent number for SmackDown there. So stories, Lance, of issues like this, people being late, people not showing up.
Yeah, I've had a few.
Bringing the crew together.
Yeah, I've had a few of them. We actually, and again, I won't name names, obviously, but with Impact a while ago, sometime last year, we had a TV taping where we lost a couple production people, lost a producer who, I think some of them was COVID, other were travel, and it was like, we're there the day of, and it's like, holy crap. And it's something that's great about wrestling is when things really fall off the rails, all egos go aside and people just try to get it done. And I know in Impact, we had guys stepping up and, a guy, doing a handheld that wouldn't normally do it. And, if you're a producer, it's like, sorry, you've got 4 segments a day, you got to hustle and talent step up. And it's a really good bringing together time. I know we had a time in ECW where we had like 4 guys go down to injury, and it's like you rally the troops. And with travel, they had whatever reason people couldn't get into Seattle. I know my time in WWE, we had an ice storm once, and it was a live event first, but, we're driving on highways that we found out afterwards were closed and weren't even supposed to be on them. And you get to the building, and it's just like, all right, first 2 people are here. You're the opening match. And it's like you go out and wrestle till the next people show up, and you just do it. And the next day at TV, they're like, okay, this guy couldn't get in, this guy couldn't get in. And you see the writers scrambling to rewrite the show and, talent just doing anything and everything they can. And it's a real testament. You talk about the guys that got there just in time for their run-in. Like, it's a testament to the guys that go out and have their match under the pretext of, if they show up, we're doing this. If they don't show up, you're doing this. We'll let you know. And it's like they're out doing their match, waiting to have, words sent to them, through the ref on which option of a finish they're going, because whether the talent shows up. And it's a horrible challenge at the time, but it's a fun challenge to go through, because it brings a real sense of teamwork together when you pull it off. And I would imagine at the end of that night, it was like group hugs all around. It's like, man, we did it. We can overcome this, as it was when we did it with Impact, or, talent having to, change their matches with 5 minutes notice because guys don't show up.
Now, he also has some thoughts about this Wembley show, how they should go about doing this Wembley show. And 90,000 seats. You have a prediction for what they're going to sell for this show?
I have no idea, and I don't even want to try. I think it'll do a lot better than people are thinking. Because I had talked with a friend of mine as soon as it was announced, and, they had that first skeptical. It's like, they'll be lucky to do 20. And then I start mentioning, it's like, AEW has established that a lot of their fan base are willing to travel. I think if they do, American travel packages, it's like you could get some American AEW fans that want to be a part of this giant event. And I think the name also in particular with All In, it's like, I think they should pull All In and promote this as a big thing where it's like New Japan can be in. Stardom can be in, AEW is in, Ring of Honor is in, AAA is in, and make this obviously I wouldn't use the name, but it's like, the World Peace Festival, make this feel like it is all of the wrestling world, with the exception, obviously, of WWE, coming together for this gigantic show. Everyone is all in to show what they can do. And it's like, get people from Europe traveling in, get the English market, I don't remember what year was it, 92, 93, when they did Wembley, WWE did with Brett and Davey. It's like, those fans who are rabid fans and loyal fans have been clamoring, come back and do a big show here again, come back and do a big show here again. Well, Tony's coming back and doing a big show here. And I agree with you. It's like, to me, you do Ospreay Kenny, because Ospreay is, because I was thinking, it's like, geez, who do they have that's actually British? And it's like, oh, they could get Ospreay and Kenny. It's like, I think that's a big match that, could draw as a big thing. And I think it's going to do better than people think. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't lose money and gets good press, it's a success. If it makes money, it's a success. Whether that is 25,000, 35, 50, I don't know. But I think I'm picking for sure over 45.
Yeah, I think that I think they do 45 to 50, maybe even more. I mean, 90 is going to be a difficult ask, especially when you consider that, no WWE show in history has ever done a legitimate 90,000 paid in one day. And, thing to me is they've put tickets on sale for events and had like far, far beyond sellout numbers in queue waiting to buy tickets and ultimately being unable to. And, this show is it's going to be built up as something real big. It's Wembley Stadium. You can pull from all neighboring countries, and I'm sure a lot of people will head over there to watch it. And, I don't think I'm going, but, I'd consider it an overseas trip to see this show. So I think that the ticket demand for this show is going to be pretty substantial. I don't think they're going to do like 25,000 or something like that. I think it's going to be way, way beyond that. How big it's going to be, I don't know. I saw a lot of people yesterday on our board. They were like, oh, what do we need to have New Japan people there for? And, this should be a place to showcase all of your current talent. And, why would you put Will Ospreay in the main event? He's not even signed with your company. And the thing is, you don't look at this as this lineup on this show. You look at it as this event. Yes. You're trying to create an event. You're trying to create an event that people are going to remember for decades. Just like they remember, British Bulldog and Bret Hart at Wembley. What else was on that Wembley show, everybody? What else do you remember from that show? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who else was on the show. The point is, you did that event. People talk about it for decades, and you create a presence in that market. And not only in that market, but in the United States, the people that are fans of professional wrestling, they hear about this show. My God, they did 53,000 people at Wembley Stadium for this AEW show. And that's the kind of thing that you need to build interest and try to build momentum. It's not about, did Anna Jay get a chance to work on this show? Did whoever? That's not what this is about. This is about what are the biggest matches you can put together, what will get people to buy a ticket and get into the building. If that's a big New Japan match, if that's a big match from Progress or whatever, like whatever it's going to be to get people into that building and make this a historic event, that's what you do. You can worry about making sure everybody gets on the show for whatever your next pay-per-view is and the next time you go to Europe or whatever. But for this one, it's just make this a legendary show.
It's the perception of this being an event and a happening that people will talk about, and it could do incredible for the AEW image. And it's like, that's the long-term goal. Even more so over making money. It's sending the message that they are a worldwide company that can do a stadium show. And again, could you imagine? I would love to be the fly on the wall if they can beat the, 81,000 record That
Yeah.
if AEW actually had the bigger attendance record than WWE, like Vince McMahon would be, his head would explode. And maybe there's going to be enough of a fan swell that would like to see that happen that they'll show up.
They'll claim, WWE will always claim they're 101, but anyway, we're going to head to a break. We'll come back. We'll do the world-famous Raw Report and more. Observer Live.
And it was also funny because ROH, when I was younger, was like shows I would go to and joke like, oh, if I wanted to choose like anywhere to be, I would want to be here. And it's crazy to think about because there was such like a vibe to ROH, and I feel like has that vibe again, and it's just even bigger than what it was before. And I'm just so grateful that I was able to be a part of it. And I also messed with a bunch of like the guys who've been on ROH for a minute. And I posted the picture of me like super young hanging out with like Maria Kanellis and the Kingdom when I was like just a baby. And I was like, yeah, I used to go to shows and watch you guys, and now you have to work with me.
Oh my God, what did they say? What was their reaction to that?
Everybody was like, you make me feel old. And I even joked with Bryce, the ref. He was like, yeah, I was looking at your social media and I saw the post and I was like, oh my God, I ref those shows. She's a child. And I was like, I had to grow up. I'm sorry. I'm still so young. And nobody, like, they're like, we love it, but you just make us feel old sometimes. You can't do this to us. I truly think that the women's community is super, super, like, protective and caring about one another and truly want to see people grow. And it's funny because everybody wants to say, oh, we're competing for a spot. There's only a certain number of spots on shows. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I get that, but we don't get better without each other. And that's the truth in wrestling. We need each other. You can't have a match by yourself. You need an opponent.
Exactly. So for you, who are some of the women that you feel you've like really connected with, that you either helped you out in your journey, that you just really kind of bonded with, or that you take inspiration from?
Definitely Jessica Havoc. She's an amazing woman, has helped me very early on my career, and even now, Ruby Soho, she's an amazing person, and if I message her, she'll answer any of my questions. No matter how goofy or crazy it is, she'll take the time and be like, yeah, I can help Billie out. I'm one of those people, I'm like, hey, what are you doing? I have this really weird question about wrestling, and it will be like completely random topic that we have never talked about before, and then we'll go into like a sidebar conversation when I'm like, hey, when's the next time I see you? Do you want to see this kid do a 450 off the AC unit? She's like, what are you talking about?
Back on the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive not joining us here today. Lance is here. Lance, are you excited for NXT tonight?
I'm not any more excited than I usually am, which is pretty low. I'm generally not an excited kind of guy.
Four-way to determine the number one contender to Carmelo Hayes' NXT title. Dragon Lee, JD McDonough, and two others to be announced. We have Alba Fire, Isla Dawn against Fallon Henley and Kiana James for the tag team titles. Ilya Dragunov and Von Wagner. If Wagner loses, Mr. Stone will walk away from him, it says here. Chase U MVP ceremony for Duke Hudson. Tiffany Stratton versus Sol Ruka. And a Cora Jade appearance on the show. So It's NXT tonight. Can't wait to talk about that one tomorrow.
Could be
All
the
right.
end of the long-running, successful Robert Stone, Von Wagner pairing.
Yeah, we'll see what happens tonight. I think something's going to happen.
I
what
would
I'm
hope
saying?
so.
Something's going to happen, but I don't know what it is. I think it's going to be something like, Von Wagner somehow wins, although that's beating Ilya Dragunov, so I'm kind of a little down on that idea. But, somehow he wins. Maybe JD McDonough costs Ilya Dragunov the match or something like that. And then afterwards, Robert Stone thinks, all right, fine, I'll stay with you. But then Von Wagner's like, screw you, buddy. And he beats him up, and he reveals another new manager who I guess knows more about Von than Robert Stone did.
More about him than that he's tall and grunts.
Yeah. All right, Raw. Ray came down for a promo, and he challenged Dom to get in the ring with him, which is kind of funny because, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but on SmackDown, they did a tag match, and Dom was in the ring with Ray. But Ray does want a one-on-one rematch, and Dominic says, well, that ain't going to happen, but I got somebody here that'll fight you tonight. It was Finn Balor. They had, as you would expect, a very good match. And Dom is on the outside, and first he tries to hit Ray with a chain, but Ray thwarts him, hits a big dive, wipes out both guys on the outside, throws Finn back into the ring, and then Dom clobbers him with the chain spot after all. Finn squishes poor Rey Mysterio with the double foot stomp, pins him. So all of this is going to be setting up either a tag or a six-man, I'm sure involving Bad Bunny, coming up at the Puerto Rico pay-per-view, which is WrestleMania Backlash. Then we had an interview with Otis and Chad, and in the middle of the interview, they cut to a shot of Lita laid out backstage, and Raquel and Liv are there. Trish and Becky show up, and Becky thinks for sure that Raquel and Liv were responsible. And as we later find out, turns out she was wrong, it appears. Byron Saxton interviews Becky. We had a guy on our board that was really angry. He goes, can Brian and Dave quit just presuming Vince is responsible for all these changes just because someone says something different? Listen, buddy. They, by decree of Vince McMahon, were required to use the term local medical facility. Okay? This was a Vince McMahon decree. Vince McMahon departed WWE. And literally, I think the very next show, someone got injured. And I actually think it was Becky was the one who said that they had been taken to the hospital. They proceeded to use the term hospital until Vince McMahon returned, at which point, on this very show, Becky said that Lita had been taken to a local medical facility. I understand you want to believe that Vince is not back. That's fine. I do as well. But get real, buddy. Let's live in reality here. We're back to having to call this place a local medical facility.
How dare you draw conclusions from 30 years of evidence, Brian?
It's a flaw, a human flaw that I have. Speaking of flaws, with all due respect, Raquel and Liv versus Becky and Trish for the tag titles. Holy smokes, this thing fell apart. And it went way too long. And my favorite spot of the year so far is when some spot got botched in the corner. And in response to it, Raquel grabs Becky Lynch and she slams her onto her own partner. I don't know what was supposed to happen. I was dying. And so poor Liv gets squished by her own partner power slamming Becky onto her. And Becky's got that look on her face like, oh, dude. And then she just grabs Liv, and they start to go to their near falls and everything like that. And then Trish ends up going for the chick kick on Liv. Liv rolls her up. Liv pins her. So for those keeping track, Becky and Lita lost the tag titles to Raquel and Liv when Liv pinned Trish Stratus, who is not one half of the World Tag Team Champions. So this was a very WCW segment right here, probably closer to Thunder. And then, Becky's consoling Trish afterwards, and Trish ends up turning on her and attacking her later out. And so, according to Dave, this is a match scheduled for SummerSlam. It's April. I guess Trish is going to go home and come back? Is that what's going to happen here? Because that's a long way to go to build up a one-on-one match with Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus. This is the kind of thing you would do if they were going to be wrestling in like Puerto Rico or something like that.
Is it possible that there's a Trish and Lita program first?
I mean, maybe.
If
you could always do anything.
Assuming Trish was the one who beat up Lita and lost Lita's tag team title for her, they could fill some time with that, perhaps.
Sure, yeah.
Actually, wasn't. Yeah, it was. Trish and Lita had a match in Puerto Rico before. New Year's resolution one. I think Lita blew her knee out doing a Thez press off the apron in Puerto Rico.
Uh-oh. Well, now's their chance for revenge. Do it again. Get it right. Heyman promo talking about the main event. Trish interview, which she just refused to talk to Byron, which, you know, can blame her. Dakota and Io met with Bayley, and this was just like, this whole thing is weird. So they're very clearly teasing that Bayley is going to turn on Io and Dakota, probably specifically Io. So Bayley comes out of Adam Pearce's office, and Dakota and Io are hoping that she got them a tag title shot. She says, well, you know, he was just wanting to talk about the draft, and so I was like, you know, make sure when we get drafted, we all go together. But you know what else he said? He goes, I get to be put into a three-way tonight, and the winner gets a shot at Bianca. And Dakota and Io, particularly Io, is upset, and she says, well, what about us? And so Bayley goes, well, I'll go talk to him and see if maybe he'll give one of you that spot instead. So she walks away. And in my mind, I thought, okay, well, you know, it's going to turn out that he didn't want to give one of them the spot. And so, you know, Bayley just takes this match and they're upset. But then we find out later in the show that she actually went back in, she actually made the request, and he actually allowed Io to take her spot. So that was kind of weird. Then we had Lashley and Bronson, and I loved this match. Just two big dudes pounding on each other. And they pounded and pounded and pounded, and then they ended up outside. They got counted out. And then they have this big brawl, and, you know, for those of you that watched the show, Bronson was, like, exhausted. I mean, he couldn't do anything during this brawl. And Lashley is just, he's, boom, throwing punches. He's just out there, and poor Bronson's just... So apparently Bronson was ill. I don't know if he had... I think the report was that he had the flu, but he said he was sick, and that's why everything was so bad. And, man, if he had the flu like Craig had the flu, I don't even know how he was in the ring. So, anyway, they're going to be setting up for a rematch with those guys. We had a Cody promo, which I thought was an excellent promo. And he talked about WrestleMania and how he lost and how he apologized to the people that thought that he should have won. And he said that I heard a lot of things after the match, and one was from my buddy who said, you know, you're in the main event of WrestleMania. You should be happy with that. What does it matter if you win or lose when you're in the main event? And he said, of course it matters if you win. Said the only people who say you don't need to win or lose are people who've already finished their stories, which I have not. And then he was appalled that Paul Heyman said, if you ever want to challenge for the title again, you got to earn it. And he says, that dismisses my entire career, my entire life. He says, earn it, I am it. But now there's a wrinkle in this story, and that's Brock Lesnar. And he says, what could be more embarrassing than lying in the ring with a rubber chicken and no belts than coming to work the next day and getting beaten and beaten and beaten and beaten and beaten by Brock Lesnar? Why, he says. He says, on SmackDown, they claimed that Brock was mad about his spot at Mania. He says, I can almost understand that, but, you know, let's talk about your career, Brock. Your whole career, you have seen everyone else, from The Rock to Kurt Angle to The Undertaker. They've all been victims to you. Is that how you see me? And then he goes, should I be afraid of Brock Lesnar? And the fans are like, no! And Cody goes, well, actually, I'm scared of him. I'd be crazy not to be. But I still want to fight him. And so he challenges him to a match at Backlash, and looks like that's going to be the main event of the show. I thought this was great.
Did they reference Brody's murder in Puerto Rico?
I don't remember hearing that anywhere.
I had heard a line that Puerto Rico was where predators become prey. And the first thing I thought of was...
I see.
Brody's...
I don't think if he said that, I think he may have said, like, in Puerto Rico, the predator will become prey. But I did not hear anything that I interpreted as a reference to Brody being murdered. We had Alpha Academy versus the Usos. Otis is playing Super Porky, and it's awesome. And the Usos double-teamed. Chad Gable hit the 1D, got the pin. This was a very good match. Then we had Io Sky, Doudrop, and Michin in a three-way for the #1 contendership. And Io was like, I don't know if she's going to win the title or just because she's getting a championship match, probably, I guess, in Puerto Rico, but it could be TV. But, man, she was super motivated in this match, and she looked great. And all of these big spots, she's doing moonsaults off the post, springboards, all of this crazy stuff. And she finally moonsaults onto both of them as Michin is covering Doudrop. She covers Michin, she gets the pin. And Dakota, boom, immediately it's the ring. She's hugging her. She's all happy. And Bayley kind of walks into the ring and raises her hand. And you can see that Bayley's not down with this whole thing. Kevin Owens promo where, he goes, I know what you're going to ask, Byron. Like, I got a bad knee. What am I doing going out here? He looks at Byron and he goes, do I look like the smartest guy to you? And before Byron can answer, he goes, well, I am a smart guy, but I'm also a guy that makes a lot of decisions with my heart. And bad knee or not, I'm going out there to get revenge on Solo. So he could not bring himself to say that he was a stupid babyface. He is a smart babyface who sometimes makes stupid decisions because he likes to fight so much. And that led us to Kevin and Solo, which was a good main event. Kevin Owens selling his bad knee. Man, this dude was great. I mean, just little things like, he throws these super kicks, but, you're throwing a super kick and you have to stand on your bad leg. So he only throws super kicks when he's near the rope so he can hold onto the ropes for balance as he throws a super kick. And then he goes for his cannonball, but he collapses. And then finally he hits the press powerbomb, but his leg gives out. He falls down. Jimmy takes a ref. Jay super kicks him. Solo hits a super kick in the spike and gets the pin. So Kevin, Sammy, both beaten in the last 2 days, which I'm sure probably sets up a title rematch in Puerto Rico. But they go destroy Kevin afterwards, and then Sammy and Riddle race down the ramp, make the save. Sammy sets up Jay in the corner. He's going to go for that big kick, and Jay rolls outside. So, yeah, probably either a tag match or a big six-man coming up in Puerto Rico. But overall, given the circumstances with travel, an excellent Raw. Back in a moment, Observer Live.
So let's get right into it. Now, I know you said you're not a fan of school, but what is your favorite subject in school?
So definitely this year I take Psychology 101, and it's been my favorite class this year. We're on like a serial killer unit right now, and I'm having like a great time. It's actually something I'm super interested in.
Okay, question number 2. Favorite place to hang out when you're not wrestling?
My best friend's house. She has like a trampoline and a pool in her backyard, and I've been friends with her since middle school. So whenever I get to see her over the weekends, and like whenever I'm not all over the place, I love just going over to her house and hanging out.
Question number 3. A match or opponent you've learned most from?
Ooh, that's hard. I will say, like, very early on in my career, the person I probably learned most from was Kylie Ray. I had a match with her when I was a little over a year in, and she honestly helped me out so much so early on in my career. So I'm going to give it to her.
Question number 4. What's something aside from wrestling that you're a big fan of? And I guess we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I guess if there's anything else.
I'm a big video game person, and I mostly focus on like first shooter games. So I love Call of Duty. I like Splitgate. I like Overwatch. So that's more like my second love. Whenever I'm not wrestling, I can play video games and have fun. I joke that like when I'm not wrestling, it helps me get like my violent tendencies out. I was like definitely becoming a wrestler, and whenever you have a weekend off, and you're like, oh my God, I have all this pent up like energy. What's going on? I feel frustrated. And my mom jokes, like, I get all grumpy when I don't get to wrestle. She was like, you need to get something out where it's like it builds up in you. And I don't know what it is.
Question number 5. Favorite way to spend your time traveling?
Ooh, honestly, I love just hopping on a plane and just falling asleep. If I could sleep on the plane like every single time, I would be a happy soul. But there's like sometimes I'll get squished right in the middle and I'm like, this is the worst. I can't do anything here. Rough sometimes in the car too. I will say like I joke that the traveling beats up my body more than the wrestling sometimes because like trying to sleep in the car and I will wake up and my neck's just sore. I'm like, what happened?
Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Lance Storm is joining us. And Lance is coming Sunday. Rebellion. Where we'll find out if Mickie James is cleared for the show or if she will be relinquishing her women's title. What's going on here, bro?
Well, we'll find out whether she defends or relinquishes this Thursday on Impact on Access TV. And Sunday live on pay-per-view from Toronto is Rebellion. And we will crown a new Impact World Champion when Steve Maclin faces Kushida. And we may crown a new Knockouts World Champion as well. If Mickie can defend, she will, and then she could. But it'll either be Jordan Grace versus Deonna Purrazzo in a single, or it will be Jordan, Deonna, and Mickie in a three-way if Mickie is good to go. We will find out Thursday. Impact on Access Fight Network in Canada.
Can you reveal to us anything about how much of this is real and how much is not, or do we have to wait and see?
This is 100% legit. She got hurt, and we're literally waiting for the final doctor to say yes.
Okay,
or no.
so that is legitimate. Like if she's good to go by Thursday, she's good to go, and if she's not, she's not.
Yeah, well, it may be tomorrow that she has her doctor, so I don't know exactly, but...
Well, sure, but the cutoff is this coming Thursday.
Yes, Thursday it'll be announced one way or the other, and obviously Josh's injury, he had tricep surgery. It's 100% sure.
That one's legit for sure, yeah.
Well, both are.
Well, yeah, but my point was, like, she could have been legitimately injured, but you guys already know she's back, and you're doing a storyline to lead to Thursday, but you're telling me that this is... The whole thing leading up to Thursday is all, can she actually get cleared?
Yeah, whether she finds out today, tomorrow, or Thursday, I don't know. But the decision's made this week, and we'll know for sure on Impact Thursday, Access TV.
We asked the tough questions here on Observer Live, everybody. But you know what? We're out of here. Back tomorrow. NXT and more. Wrestling Observer Live.